All right. Thanks, Nate, for that call sign. Welcome, everyone, to North of Normal. This is Amanda McKeen, and today we have a special guest. His name is Paul Cormier. Is it Cormier or Cormier?
Cormier.
Cormier.
Yep. We're anglicized.
All right, Cormier. Paul, you and I know each other from search and rescue, and to be honest, I'm getting this feeling as we've been talking recently that you're kind of like a raspberry, and you have a lot of bumps, and I only know one bump, and that is the search and rescue, and just a little bit of your technical skills too, because of your work with AVSAR. I would love to give our listeners a chance to get to know who you are, how you came about to be here in New Hampshire and in the White Mountains. Any part of that story that you want to share with us today would be awesome.
All right. That should be fun.
Okay. So, do you want to tell me where you were born?
Yeah, I was born in Gorham, New Hampshire. And I grew up there, and I did not graduate high school there. My parents moved to the Portland area in my senior year of high school, so I ended up going to the University of Maine, at that time Portland-Gorham campus, and I got a teaching degree, and after 1 year of teaching, I decided that wasn't really where I wanted to go, so I started a building and design business.
What were you teaching?
History and geography.
Oh. Okay, so you went from history and geography to design and building?
That's correct. Yeah.
All right.
I worked my way through college, which took me 5 years. And I worked as a carpenter during the daytime. So fortunately, by the time I finished my college journey, I had 5 years of building behind me, and I fell into that better.
Okay.
I liked that better.
Why do you think you like that better?
I like the non-structure of you're always working in a different place. You've always got a different project. You've always got a different problem to solve. And so that fit my personality better. Gave me time to climb. So that's just, it's very rare that we end up doing what we planned on doing anyway, so you follow your heart, and you follow the winds, and this is the life that I enjoy. So how long, can we talk about the climbing, because I know that's going to come up a lot. When did you climb for the very first time? I was like I said, being in the North Country from my birth, my family was a family of trappers and hunters and fishermen, so I spent my entire life in the woods anyway. And I think being a kid of 14 years old, that was just sort of a natural progression. Some of the things I remember that really got me interested in climbing was watching Warren Harding top out on El Cap back in the late 60s. I remember watching the 1973 American Mount Everest expedition on TV. I was just totally taken with that. And like I said, I'm hiking and stuff anyway at that age, and climbing just intrigued me. So I went to the Gorham Library, and I got myself a book, and I went to Gorham Hardware, and I bought myself a rope. And me and my buddy Paige Dinsmore went out on some rocks behind his house, and we tried to kill ourselves. And that's pretty much how I got into it. And I used 1968 as the year that I really started climbing, because my parents bought me a Freedom of the Hills book, 2nd edition then. So I knew I must have been climbing quite a bit at that time, and they wanted me to have some direction. There weren't any climbing schools then.
Yeah. You were just kind of figuring it out like everybody else in the climbing community, right?
Yeah, there wasn't any schools, and really there wasn't any gear like we have today, So, I made my first ice axe in shop.
You made it?
Yeah, and I took a pair of crampons and bent them out into front points, because there wasn't any front points at that time. And we welded a spreader bar across the front points, and I climbed Pinnacle Gully on Mount Washington and with that gear. Yeah.
Oh my goodness! The front points, I know now that there's 2.
Yeah.
And there used to be just 1, right?
No, there's 1 now.
Oh, there's 1.
Yeah, there's 1 and 2 now.
Okay.
Back then they were just 10 straight points that came down, and Rick Wilcox Chenard had brought the front points to America, the United States, and so I was looking at those, and so I modified the ones that I got from Peter Lemmer's and made them into front points. And the ice axe I made I saw a picture of a pterodactyl, which is an English ice axe, and I used that design to make the ice axe.
Really cool. Really cool how you just solved the problems yourself.
Yeah, well, that's what kind of been the
theme. The
theme of my entire life is I make stuff. I like to make stuff, and that's really how Chenard and Tom Frost and all these people they made their own gear, and that's how this gear got developed.
Yeah. Do you have any gear that you kind of invented that?
I've got a bunch of stuff that I've made over the years. I made a knot blocking device for MRS, which I soon discarded because I figured out how to do it without the blocking device.
Okay.
And I have some belaying devices that I have designed that I still use today. And I made a bunch of my own pitons with my own design.
What are pitons?
Pitons are like nails that you pound into cracks in rock rather than placing stoppers and camming devices like we do today.
Yeah.
It's pretty destructive on the rock, but that was how it was. That's how the technology was back then. So I make my own bolt hangers too. I always made my own bolt hangers.
Nice. So you were climbing like as soon as you could, figuring things out, inventing things, and doing carpentry to support the lifestyle that you wanted, right?
Mm-hmm.
At what point did you start getting involved in search and rescue?
I probably didn't realize. I went on my first search back in 74 or 75 when I was subbing in at Lonesome Lake Hut. But I really
you work
was
for AMC or something.
Yeah, I was a weekend fill-in person. Never worked full time for them, but I didn't really get into the search and rescue scene until the late 80s.
Okay.
I had moved up here. I was living at Twin at the time, and I was climbing with Mike Pelsha, and Mike was director of state parks, and he was involved in search and rescue as part of his job description. And my first search and rescue that I went on, we had a couple of people in Jefferson Ravine, and Mike just called me up that we didn't have a rescue team back then, and asked me to help him out, and the two of us went up there, and we crossed the range and went down into Jefferson Ravine, and we cut out a helicopter landing pad, and we got those two people out of there, and then we hiked all the way out the Great Gulf together.
Oh, man. The Great Gulf is just this massive area of nothingness.
Yep. There wasn't any trail where we were either. Fortunately, the AMC had a crew that sent some people up with snowshoes to pack out the trail so that we wouldn't have to break trail all the way out. We did have to break trail from Jefferson Ravine down to the Great Gulf Trail.
Yeah. And
that was when Mike was had this North Country Search and Rescue team thing in his head.
Yeah.
And we did a number of rescues together, and it was totally by the seat of our pants, and we knew what
just
and how we wanted
you,
to
right?
do. Huh?
Just the two of you.
Just the two of us, but there was other people up here, and if Lee Stevens was at my house having supper and Mike called us up, well, we're the rescue team, we just go out. And
yeah.
It really wasn't as organized or sophisticated as what we do today. And I just started guiding in about 1992, I think it was. And when I entered the guiding community, if you were a guide, you were on the rescue team. So it was the same thing. If you get done work, Rick, and you were in the store, Rick could grab you and you'd go on a rescue. And that's how it was. There was barely a phone tree back then.
Yeah.
And as the search and rescue community grew and became more sophisticated, and my guiding skills gave me the technical skills that I needed, we just got more and more interested in it and learned about it and taught ourselves.
Yeah.
And a lot of these concepts, like crevasse rescue or regular rock climbing rescue, they're similar concepts to what we use in high-angle technical rescue, but done way differently because we're using higher loads and static ropes. But my guiding, schooling, and education helped me along that path because I understood the concepts.
Yeah. And you probably were, as you're in school for that stuff, you're working with people, you're learning how to work in a team, right? Yep.
And so once again, you get sucked down the path that you take, and if you are open to going down those paths when a door opens, it leads you to different places that you might not have expected. So as I guided, back then in the late 90s, I was climbing pretty hard, and today, as a natural progression to guiding, I'm not climbing as hard as I was, of course, because I'm in my 70s, but I'm gaining technical knowledge and abilities. So you kind of graduate or move from recreational guiding of climbs into people started thinking that I had some knowledge to share on the technical end.
Yeah.
So then I started, instead of guiding, I started teaching high-angle rescue techniques to the military, and I work for a Peak Rescue Institute, and we teach wilderness rescue to wilderness teams, to fire departments, and the military as well.
Wow, that's awesome.
So that's been quite a path.
Yeah. What do you think that younger version of yourself, when you were going to school for history and geography, if he could see the person that you are today and what you're doing, what would he say or think?
I don't know. I think I've always liked teaching, which is why I got into that profession, because teaching in a school setting didn't fit me. The teaching obviously has fit me because I've taught my whole life.
Yeah.
So I don't think that would have surprised that young man.
Yeah.
And I think my adventurousness has stayed with me throughout my life. I don't think I ever would have thought of myself as teaching Special Forces and Navy SEALs.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't have. I didn't even wouldn't have considered that. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
that's pretty awesome. The way that you can look back and see how those decisions put you where you are today, and give you some pretty cool opportunities still. And one of those, I think, is more recent, you being president of MRS. Is that a recent thing?
That's a recent thing. I'm actually into my first term. I've been a team leader for a number of years and very active in mountain rescue, and I've been past president of AVSAR.
Mm-hmm.
But MRS is much different than AVSAR. It's much more of a very closed cadre of people, because we're working at night in very difficult situations, and we have to have 100% trust in what's going on, because you're dealing with ropes and darkness and icy things, and you just don't have the control like we do with AVSAR.
Yeah.
AVSAR is the same way. We have to trust each other.
That's true.
But it's a pretty tight community.
You say the risk factor is a lot higher with mountain rescue service missions?
Not necessarily. A lot of people have asked me about the risk that we take when we go out on these rescues, and the way I think about it is, if I were to go out in the mountains alone in 80-mile-an-hour winds and 30 below zero, that would be a fairly risky thing for a person to do. But when we go out, as you know, you're going out with 10 or 15 or 20 very experienced people. You've got fish and game with communications.
Yeah.
You've got 3 or 4 medical kits in the group. You've got radios. You've managed that risk pretty well, and you've taken the risk down to a pretty safe place, even though you're in the same conditions as you might be had you gone out there alone.
Yeah, that's true. So with Mountain Rescue Service, when you go out with this very close-knit group, is there a difference in the vibe that you feel from that group?
No, not different than AVSAR.
No.
Because we're not able to communicate quite as well as, well, no, that's not even true either. No, I think it's just different.
Yeah, just different.
Just different. One team's going out in a boat and the other team's going out in an airplane. But it's the same. You got to have a team that works together. Yeah. You're just doing a little different job.
Well, I can think of last year I went on a mission to bring someone down the Ammonoosuc Ravine Trail, and it involved both AVSAR and MRS. And I saw how MRS people work together. And, it was obvious who MRS was. They're handling the ropes. They're running ahead down the trail, like getting anchors set up and just working really fast. And they're just kind of like in the background, Mm-hmm. They were like Santa's elves to me, like just making sure that things would flow through difficult spots. And that was just so cool to see them work together and to see how that team could support AVSAR too. And I know there's this overlap with AVSAR. There's a lot of people there that are on MRS. So it's just cool to see more groups come together like that.
Yep, I think that's one of my. That's always been one of my dreams. Back in the old days, or whatever, there was a little bit of competition between the groups.
Oh yeah.
And the groups were very separate. And I've tried, and I think I'm becoming pretty successful at making the teams work as one big team.
Yeah. That's a hard thing to do when you have that many people showing up, and especially if one group doesn't really recognize or know the other group very well. There is a dynamic there of like, I trust my own group because I've worked with them before. I don't know who that person is, and I'm just kind of like blindly trusting that they have the experience and all of that.
Yep, it's kind of like, I don't know, if you've got, let's say you got a recon battalion, it's a very tight group, and they're working alone. But they call in the Air Force, they'll call in the at-large troops. They're working as one, but they work in a very encapsulated existence. And that's a really good thing. I think that we've been able to have people be not only members of both teams, but participate on rescues, just like one big team.
One big team, yep.
And so that's something that I've really tried hard to do throughout my rescue career. And now that I am chair of MRS, we're moving into training together. We've got some avalanche courses coming up at MRS that we're going to be inviting AVSAR to participate in those trainings. And I think it's a really healthy rescue community that we've developed.
It's cool to hear from someone who's been around since it started, since before it started. It's nice to have that perspective. We're going to take a quick music break so that Paul and I can get some water, and we will be back with you guys shortly. All right. You are listening to WZNC LP Bethlehem, North Country Community Radio, 99.9 FM, online at nococommunityradio.org. This is Amanda McKeen. You're listening to North of Normal, and today we have Paul Cormier on as our special guest. Paul and I have been talking a lot about his background. We've talked about climbing, we've talked about school and teaching, we've talked about AVSAR and Mountain Rescue Service. Paul, something that I'm wondering about at this point is, I know your wife, Michelle, because she is part of AVSAR as well. And Michelle, like, I've only been on AVSAR for 2 years, so I'm not really sure, like, what her full involvement looked like with AVSAR. But I would love to hear more about how you two work together on missions, and, when did that start?
Well, as AVSAR became an entity, Michelle is a certified public accountant, and the few of us, me, Ray, Bill Arnold, we were putting things together, and we decided that we wanted to turn AVSAR into a recognized nonprofit and really make it an organization. And Michelle helped out with that quite a bit. So all of us were just kind of putting things together. Of course, Mike and Diane Holmes. Diane's an avid hiker. Michelle's an avid hiker. And so she was going out on missions with us too. Although she wasn't going above tree line in the winter and stuff like that. But she was a good 3-season person at the time. And it was just sort of a big family affair back then. And today she's kind of moved up and out. She doesn't go on missions anymore. She's got a new hip, and she's 71 as well. And
wow, she is.
Yeah,
she looks great.
Oh, I know.
She doesn't look 71.
She's going to outlive us all. But so she's participating in other ways. She's the treasurer for AVSAR, And so that's what she's doing now. And like all of us, and you as well, you'll move up and out, and you'll move into a managerial position, and hopefully you'll be treasurer or secretary or something. And when you're not, when you're not going out on rescues, you're still doing the work. I think there's more today. There's more work done managing these organizations than there is on the rescue itself. Yeah,
I think that's a good point. There's definitely opportunities to help and serve in other capacities besides carrying a litter, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, Ray Cotnoir is a good example. He's had heart surgery, and he's got new knees, and he's out there right now ordering heat packs that we used on the last rescue and keeping that trailer full and cocked and loaded for the next mission. So he does a tremendous amount of work. He puts in more time than the rescue is just himself.
Yeah, I really like Ray, and I only met him recently, within the last 6 months or so, or maybe it was last year, but Ray was going out. He had brought a chainsaw, and he was getting the trail cleared for everyone to be able to move freely through there. So he was there early and working hard and tying flags on trees, like making sure people knew where to go, what things needed attention. So seeing that kind of volunteer work play a big role. I don't think it gets much attention. It's not in the forefront. The attention is carrying the litter, bringing that person down and bringing them to safety or bringing them home. And so there are a lot of things going on behind the scenes. You mentioned the trailer, and I'm not sure everyone knows what the trailer is. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, originally, and we didn't have, we used our own equipment on rescues, and part of our rescue training was to take people around to everybody's house. So we had the litters and those items, they were stored up at the Arnold's garage. So the training would be, this is how you get into the Arnold's garage if you need the litter. This is how you get into my house. All the gear, all the technical gear is down in the basement. And we'd do a tour, a house tour of everybody's house. And you'd just break into their house, and get the gear. You knew where stuff was at Mike's house. And as we grew and became more sophisticated, we realized that really wasn't working quite that well. And it was fine with us because we were all friends. But now we have a rescue team of 50 or more people, and that's just not working. So one of my ideas was we've got to get this stuff put into one place where we can get at it. Yeah. And I came up with this idea of the trailer, which actually came out of Mark Chauvin's idea. Mark Chauvin wanted a trailer for MRS, but they would have none of it. So I hope Mark can sleep well at night knowing that I carried forth on his idea. Yeah. But we were finally getting some money together, and we bought this trailer for about $10,000, and Mike and I outfitted it. As you know, we get shelving and stuff, and that now
you can walk in it. Just so everyone knows.
You can walk in it. That trailer is quickly becoming a command center. Yep. We're going to have a really good radio. We're going to be as powerful a communication center as the Fish and Game vehicles, maybe even more. So I think this trailer is cutting edge. It enables us to go anywhere on a rescue, and we have everything that we need. At MRS, we store all our stuff down in the basement of IME. And once again, the call goes out, and only the people that know the code to the store can get in the store. and we have to go to the store. We have to get that stuff, but at least we have a central place.
A base.
And it's not nearly as effective as that trailer.
Do you think, now that you're president of MRS, that a trailer might be in the future?
I don't think a trailer is MRS's future. We don't have a place to park it. We're very fortunate that the Randolph Fire Department allows us to store that trailer inside in the winter and on the premises in the summer.
Okay.
What we do at MRS is we have a bunch of people have their own gear, so it's almost a cross between the way we used to do it.
Yeah.
So people have their own heat packs at their house. They have, they have a pile of, we have short ropes at people's houses. And if those people are going out first, they can go and they don't have to go to the store. Okay. And then our phone tree starts, and Steve Larson's got a truck. He's going to go to IME and get, what we do is we take everything now. We don't try to second guess. Yeah. And we clean out our storage facility and we bring it to the rescue. AVSAR's effectiveness is far better. And MRS is aware of the inventory in the AVSAR trailer. Yeah. So when we go out, we know that we can rely on the AVSAR trailer for extra ropes, extra gear, and stuff like that. But MRS probably won't have a trailer in my lifetime. Okay.
Who usually goes and gets the trailer every time for AVSAR?
Well, we have our own subcommittee of people that are not... they're not going out on the rescues anymore. Bill Arnold, he's in his late 70s. Yep. But he can take the trailer and manage the trailer. Tim Mathers, he's, got his own little issues, and so he's on the trailer committee. Yep. So he can drive that trailer. I can drive the trailer. Benny Allen can drive the trailer. And we just make it work. Yeah.
Really cool. I didn't know the trailer was your idea, so I'm glad that we talked about that.
Well, nothing's solely my idea.
Okay, it was Mark's, right?
It was Mark's.
Mark's, sorry, Mark.
Yeah, and and Mike and me, myself, we scheme together on a regular basis. So,
do you have anything you've been scheming about lately that isn't in existence yet?
Not really. One of the things that's really important to me is training and bringing these rescue teams up to the standard that I think they can be at. Yeah. Most of the guides, like I say, they use these concepts, but they don't use them the way we use them in technical rescue. And the same thing with AVSAR. You can see probably from my input that we've got more and more people are becoming technically savvy, and all our trainings on how to carry litters and the patient packaging and the care and the avalanche education that we're doing. This is all really good stuff. And previous to this, even 5 years ago, the avalanche training was, well, if you were a backcountry skier, you had some avalanche training. Now we've got some pretty high-level avalanche training out there. We've got some very high technical rescue skills. And in my mind, from what I've seen all over the country, this family of rescue teams is probably the highest trained, most professionally run teams in the country. For a volunteer team, you can't get this kind of professionalism. Most of these teams are paid, and we're still out beating the paid teams. Wow. We do a really, really good job. So the thing I'm scheming for is more training and more schooling. Yeah. And bringing everything up to we're we've got the money, and we've got a drone team now. MRS is probably going to spend close to $20,000 just on avalanche training alone this year.
Whoa.
And we'll be bringing AVSAR in on those schoolings.
Okay.
We spent probably $11,000 on high-angle technical training for the team this year.
Yep.
The level of these people that are going out on rescues is way high, and I hope to continue that.
Yeah. It makes me think about when I first joined the team 2 years ago, and I really didn't and still don't have a ton of technical experience. And my first mission was for one of the easiest, so that was really good. But just seeing like they had to bring the litter had a wheel on it, which was awesome. But they were trying to move the litter through a brook with like big rocks. Awkward. And so watching the team pass this person in a litter across a brook, and then like the speed at which that happened was astounding to me. I had no idea, like when you're not used to seeing that stuff and you just look at the terrain and you think, how is this going to happen? How is this person going to be moved through here? And then it happens in like 10 seconds, and all of a sudden you're just moving down the trail because you've got all these hands. And nobody needed technical skills in that situation. It was all about being in the right spot and communicating with the members of the team. And so that was a really big impact for me on that first rescue. And seeing the joy that everybody had when we got to the trailhead, and you know, the ambulance was waiting and the person that we carried was so grateful. It was just a really nice introduction. Mm-hmm. My next rescue was now known as one of the hardest of that year, and it was the Mariah rescue, and you were on it. I remember seeing you in the dark. And it was like thunder and lightning, pouring rain, like high angle technical stuff.
Yeah, we had MRS personnel on that
They were, yep. And that was so, I will never forget that. I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything. I was just a hiker.
Yep.
You know, and I remember you that night just being so calm and just knowing what to do. And that was really helpful. And I'm sure it was helpful for everybody on the team to just have that kind of leadership that wasn't freaking out, you know, even though there was just a lot of chaos going on. You're just like, we got this, like, this is what we're doing. And we moved through it. And that was just really incredible to see. And I just wanted to share that story because that's how I was introduced to you. Mm-hmm. That's how I first met you. And then since then, you have been a face with all of the trainings that we have. You've been there. You know, you may not be leading the training, but you're kind of like the voice in the background that's like, you know, guiding somebody, reminding somebody to say something. You know, one time you praised me for setting my own personal boundaries, saying like, hey, I'm not comfortable doing this. And you were like, good job. Like, way to stick to your boundaries. And I was just like, whoa, like that was unexpected, but really, really awesome to have that kind of support from you. So I think that I don't know if every team has that, but I think that is one of the most valuable things that a search and rescue team can offer to its volunteers. You need to know that you're safe, especially in these situations. You need to know that people have your back and that you are, you know, even if you're feeling vulnerable, that you have the support there that you need.
Yep.
Yeah.
Isn't that the way with everything in life?
It's so true. It is. It's just kind of like magnified, I think, in search and rescue.
Yeah. It's a great family. It's a great community to be involved in.
Yeah, I agree. So let's switch gears.
Okay.
Because I talked about it in my social media post. You have this passion that I didn't know about until you were going to be on the radio, and it's to do with fiddles. And I would love to learn more about, like, what do you have to do with fiddles?
Well, I've been playing fiddle since, I don't know, my college days, so my early 20s. And when I moved up here, I guess you want me to talk about my violin making, I guess, but I've always been interested in traditional music, and I was very fortunate to have some friends and teachers and mentors that helped me in that direction. So I've been playing for contra dances since my early 20s, and been a member of a number of bands. And then eventually, because of my woodworking skills, I started repairing fiddles. And then as things moved forward, I started making them. And once again, I've got some great people that have helped me through that. John Cooper is one of the premier violin makers in the United States, and he gave me my first violin lesson, and he helps me out when I'm working on my fiddles. Don Roy, he's a great fiddler, and we share our shops together, and he's helped through that. And I think that and it's not just the North Country, but in all these rural communities, the oral tradition is really a fascinating place to go. These French Canadian tunes, the Irish tunes they're all learned by ear. I went to a concert by Alistair Fraser one time, and he took one tune, The Red-Haired Boy, and he played it as if it was a Scottish tune, and then he played it as an Irish tune, and then he played it as a South African tune, and then he played it, and he took that tune and he went all over the world with it.
Oh, wow.
And in some places you could still hear the Red-Haired Boy in there, but it was a different tune. It was different. And there's a big Irish community in North Carolina, and they play all these Irish tunes, but they play them in an Appalachian style.
Yeah.
And clogging is a very Irishy thing, but it's very Appalachian. And chair dancing and clogging in Quebecois music it's its own style. It's really fascinating to see how these stories and songs and dances just they move through the oral tradition, and they last for centuries.
Yeah. You were talking to me last week about how there are songs, because you just came back from fiddle camp, which I never knew existed, and there are songs you said that aren't even written down, that have been passed on from generation to generation. And that was like a really weird concept to me. I mean, we're sitting in a room with all of this documented music right now on vinyl, CDs, on Spotify, and you're talking about music that exists that's not on anything. It's in people's heads, right?
There's a bunch of people, Eric Favreau, Pascal Gem, and they go through Quebec, and they search out these older people, or they'll dig out old 78s, and they're digging out these tunes and archiving them. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty amazing, and they bring that work to Fiddle Camp, and they are writing these things down.
Okay.
And but it's pretty darn amazing to see these tunes that, and they're very complex tunes. These are not uneducated people, and a lot of these stories and stuff, they were, they come out of the logging camps and stuff.
Yep.
And it's good that they're doing that work.
Yeah. So we're gonna listen to one of the songs that you had mentioned is called Northwest Passage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who's that by?
It's Stan Rogers.
So we're going to listen to Northwest Passage, but do you know the story behind it? Do you want to do any kind of introduction?
Well, Stan Rogers is, he was a songwriter, and he, from New Brunswick, and he wrote songs in the traditional style. So his songs are written, when you listen to it, you will think that this is an old song that is about crossing the Northwest Passage. But it's not an old song, it's a new song. And he talks about it. The song is actually, to me, about all of our adventures as we drive across the country a first time, and we're leaving the past behind us. And that's what all these explorers did. So it's a great tune, and I think Stan Rogers is a great balladeer.
Okay, well, we're going to listen to Northwest Passage by Stan Rogers, and for all of you adventurers out there, listen closely. Thanks for tuning in. You're listening to WZNC LP Bethlehem, North Country Community Radio 99.9 FM, streaming online at nococommunityradio.org. This is Amanda McKeen. You're listening to North of Normal, and I have Paul Cormier here as my special guest. And we have had an amazing hour talking about climbing and search and rescue and fiddles. And we just listened to a really cool song that's one of Paul's favorites, and that was Northwest Passage by, what was his name?
Stan Rogers.
Stan Rogers. So, we've heard a lot from Paul about his specialties and his ability to make things that solve problems, and just very, very technically skilled. I asked Paul if he would be willing to share a story of a time in his life where he was truly scared, because we're here to be human. So, Paul, do you want to share a story about when you were scared out of your mind?
Well, the one that comes to mind, which is because of this book, Lions in Winter, which was about the 1982 rescue, that it's in Ty's new book. But people always look at these rescues and they look at the mistakes that the people make, and there's a lot of hindsight quarterbacking that goes on with those, and it just brought to mind a climb that I did probably maybe in 1970. Friend of mine, I guess I'll leave his name out for now, and we decided to climb Damnation Gully. And
where is that, by the way?
That's in Huntington Ravine.
Okay.
And we climbed the gully, and there was extreme avalanche danger, but, we were kids, and we didn't know about avalanche danger. And we successfully climbed the gully, and we got to the top, and there was this huge cornice. And
can you explain what a cornice is?
As the wind blows the snow builds up on the leeward side of the ravine, and this huge overhang of snow builds up and builds up and builds up until you have this big roof or canopy.
Yep.
And all that snow is just hanging, and it's just compacted snow. So he cut a hole through the cornice, and which is really stupid because you're going to have tons and tons of snow coming down on you if this thing gives way, you know. But we didn't know, you know. We're young and pretty full of ourselves, and we were going up. So we got to the top of Damnation, and the weather was just absolutely horrendous, and it was late in the day. Of course, my memory is going to make things probably different than they were. I remember it being pretty close to dark at the time, and we didn't even coil our ropes. We just stuffed the ropes in the pack, and we decided to head. We knew we couldn't head across the Alpine Guard, and we knew we couldn't go back down the route that we came up. So we made the very logical decision to go down Nelson Crag and down the northeastern shoulder of Huntington Ravine and come out at the base, which was really a stupid idea. And we worked our way down through that, and we swam through the Krumholtz down at the bottom, and we popped right out at the base of the ravine, and we brushed ourselves off, and we hiked down the trail, and that was the end of that, you know. And these young, same age, couple of years later, 17 and 18-year-old climbers went up and they did Odell's Gully in Pinnacle, similar conditions, and they got to the top, and they decided that they were also going to go down, but they got turned around somehow, and they ended up on the other side of the mountain, and they weren't found for 4 days. So it brings home the fact that my friend and I got a good education, and we didn't get bit.
Yeah.
And that's how we gain experience, and that's how we become humble, and that's how we become stronger people. But it's a fine line between skill, bravery, and stupidity.
Yeah.
And that climb took me a lot of places.
Yeah, I'm sure it did. Do you think that your friend learned and saw it the same way as you did?
Oh, I think so. Yeah. He was also involved in another problematic climbing incident maybe the next year.
Yeah.
And that one bit the crew, and they had a death, and they had some amputations on that team.
And he saw that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was part of all that.
It's hard. I imagine it's hard, like, seeing it happen to someone else and knowing that it very well could have been you. And how do you move through that? Seeing it happen to someone else and knowing that you made the same stupid decision and came out of it fine.
That's one of the reasons, and I think if you talk to any seasoned rescuer, when the call goes out, I don't even think about, going after someone that was stupid, or I don't judge a situation. I don't care who the person is. I don't care what their name was, and I don't care about even thinking whether it was a bad decision or not. We have a job to do, and we have the skills to get that job done, and we do it, and we put the person in the ambulance, and we go home. And for me, I don't really think that much about past rescues.
No.
And I don't think about the person or what they did or how they did it. And I think if you asked any of the other seasoned rescuers, they would be the same. I think it's pretty cool that we have the skills to pull this stuff off.
Yeah.
And that's what makes search and rescue so enjoyable for myself.
Yeah. Have you ever had to be rescued?
I'll have to think on that one. No, I don't think I ever have had to be rescued.
Okay.
Somehow I've popped out the other end.
Yeah.
Been pretty lucky. There's times when I should have been rescued.
Probably wish you could. A helicopter would come get you or something, but.
Yeah. So another time I was really scared was I was in the Canadian Rockies with my buddy Steve Simeone, and we had hiked. We had this idea we were going to hike 40 miles up the Athabasca River to the headwaters of the Athabasca. We were going to go into the Clemenceau ice field. Once again, I'm like 22 years old or something at the time, and we no trail. We followed all the way up to the headwaters of the Athabasca. We went up over this pass, down into the Clemenceau ice field, which is it's like a 40-mile glacier. Nobody had walked into it in, I don't know, 20 or 30 years. They've only flown into it.
Whoa.
We had no avalanche skills. We had no, our climbing skills were still pretty new to us, And we summited a bunch of peaks, and we were in there. I got tendinitis. We had a 16-inch snowfall. And there we were in the middle of this glacier with no crevasse training at all. And all the crevasses were completely covered. We popped out of the tent 4 days after the storm. And we looked at a nice, beautiful pillow of white. And we decided we probably should rope up.
Yeah.
And we roped up, and we got out of there. And we hiked. We had to take a couple days rest because of my foot. But we were way back in, and nobody knew where we were.
And this was when there were no devices.
There was no devices. No. I had left my violin with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And
why did they have it?
Because I didn't want to leave my fiddle in my truck. Because I was afraid the sun was going to beat it up.
Warp it, yeah.
And but that was a long trip out, and that was, boy, you were really on your own. And my guess is our first aid kit was probably a roll of first aid tape, and that was
good enough.
I mean, we just a couple of kids going for it,
Wow. That sounds terrifying, like the walking across the glacier, not knowing where the crevasses were. Did you guys fall?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And we set off an avalanche.
You set off an avalanche?
Yeah, we came over this pass, and Dave jumped down to go into to Glissades to slide down the slope. Once again, it's high avalanche danger. Why would you want to slide down a snow slope? But we thought it was faster, so it was a very logical decision. And Dave jumped into that gully, and the whole gully went. Boom.
Oh.
And he looked up at me, and I looked down at him, and we said, well, I guess it's safe now. So
You just did a whole snow plow. You just made the way.
We just went down the thing.
Oh, my goodness.
Worked our way back out.
So it's a miracle that you're sitting here today, is what you're saying.
Like I said, the first 4 years of my climbing career was trying to kill myself and everybody else in the mountains. But I gained a lot of experience that way. Yeah.
I bet. That's incredible. What a story. All right, we're going to wrap things up here, but to kind of leave things, do you have a song you want to listen to? I think we were looking at one called Shetty Camp Set. Shetty Camp Set.
Yeah.
What is that?
Shetty Camp Set. That's performed by Colin Grant. when you're up in Cape Breton, every town has its own set. So you have the Mabou set, you have the Shetty Camp set, and such like that. And those sets are usually accompanied by a specific dance of that town or region. So if somebody's playing the Shetty Camp set, they will also dance the Shetty Camp set. And you memorize the dances, and you memorize the tunes. And these are played in bars and whatnot. And there's might be a Saturday night dance, and the caller will just say, we're doing the Mabou set. And so this is a set of 3 songs, I believe, all done in a French-Canadian flavor, because Shetty Camp is very French.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Paul.
This was great fun.
Yeah, it was really wonderful. Thanks for sharing all your stories and your wisdom from survival throughout these years. All right, here we go with Shetty Camp set.